R3E ACC AMS RF2 WTF? Don't worry, we're explaining Sims to you right here, right now. Greetings petrolheads and welcome to rFactor.net, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing, and to our new series, Sim Racing Beginner's Guide. My name is Serta and I will be your host for this video. A while ago we published a comparison of different racing sims explaining their differences and similarities. Enough time has passed to take a look at what is on offer right now and re-evaluate our checklist. Also because thankfully the situation right now is an embarrassment of riches and there is no sim that fits all players and users. As to which sim you should buy, this depends on your preferences. I have my favorite sims, but that doesn't mean they need to be yours too. Be advised, we are concentrating our view on what we consider simulations, by which we mean software that tries to give you the same feeling and the same immersion that racing in real life would give you. Of course, to the extent a PC can do that at all. It normally does that by striving for realism in all possible ways. This is not a comment on their quality, but a comment on their purpose. I, for example, insist on the quality of Wreckfest, but it's not a racing sim as enjoyable as it may be. We have also concentrated the list around software that runs on PCs, as the bulk of the sims is found in the PC market. And because mods normally only run on PC-based software. Where there is a port for consoles that we know of, we'll comment on it. What characteristics make out sims, you ask? We prepared a video explaining all those in case you want to know what we mean by each of them, which we published already. Link up there and in the description. Also in the description you'll find a link to a detailed table on our website with the information we give here. And we thank our buddies in the VGA, see their Discord in the description, who reviewed this list and offered ideas. Before we start, remember that if you want to be informed about new videos, click subscribe and also click on the bell and become part of the ever-growing rFactor family. The physics of Assetto Corsa are not the best, but they are very good, especially considering the age of the sim, allowing for different driving feelings amongst the many different vehicles you can drive with it. The force feedback translates those physics quite well to any kind of wheel. The graphics are quite good, better than those in some more modern sims, and are primed for realism. If you use the CSP and Soul mods, they will enhance the graphics even more and make them almost on par with any other sim being done now, at the cost of lots of GPU and CPU cycles. Assetto Corsa supports the Oculus Rift and many other virtual reality systems and does so quite well. Not as easily as Automobilista 2, but still quite well. The amount of mods for Assetto Corsa has no parallel in the sim racing world. We alone count thousands of cars and tracks in our database, and there are still many mods made for Assetto Corsa. Even official ones from KTM, Brabham or Ferrari. It's impressive what and where you can drive with Assetto Corsa. Sadly, the development of the sim ceased some years ago, and any improvement comes from clever developers that find out where to dock mods. Especially the aforementioned CSP and Soul mods allowed it a quantum leap in graphics. The sun always shines in the world of Assetto Corsa, and it's always warm, unless you install the Soul mod or other mods. CSP even brings realistic rain into this sim. Without mods, no weather differences. With mods, some, but no dynamic weather. What you set up is there for the whole session. Also, Assetto Corsa has no day and night cycle by itself. You need Soul to do that. Assetto Corsa's multiplayer mode is not the best, but neither is it the worst. The netcode is acceptable and there are many series being raced on it. But you have to set up all by yourself and there is no support for leagues, so it's ready for multiplayer up to a point. Assetto Corsa supports many kinds of vehicles. There are even mods where you can fly a plane or race a banana, and is by no way fixed on those specific racing series. There's even cars and tracks for rally and rallycross, and Assetto Corsa is still beloved by an incredibly active community producing mods and racing around it. We dare to say, other than the iRacing community, the Assetto Corsa community is the most active in sim racing. You won't be able to do endurance races, as while at last we have a 24-hour cycle thanks to the Soul mod, there is absolutely no way you can do a driver swap. The price is quite good. We recommend you get Assetto Corsa Ultimate in a sale, where it normally costs around €10. This pack brings the basic sim with all of the DLCs ever produced by Kunos. Most mods are free, although there are also mods you have to pay for. The quality varies. There are console versions, but they are not able to use mods. The port seems to be quite good though. Setting up an Assetto Corsa server is easy if you know your way around servers. For those who are not tech savvy, it may be too much of a task, but that can be said about most, if not all, of the sims we're presenting here. Made by the same studio that delivered Assetto Corsa Competizione has even better physics than Assetto Corsa and therefore better force feedback. The graphics are excellent but very taxing to any system. You may need a high-end GPU to run it smoothly. It supports virtual reality okay-ish, but the graphics issues are exponentially higher as VR is always a resource hog when it comes to graphics. There's ways to go easier on the graphics in VR, as other sims like Automobilista 2 and Raceroom Racing Experience clearly show. Sadly, there are no mods for Assetto Corsa Competizione and nobody seems to have found a way to mod the sim. This is especially sad as this sim only supports a limited set of tracks and only some very specific GT cars. This could change, although we doubt it, as Assetto Corsa Competizione is still being developed with regular updates and some DLCs already published. Assetto Corsa Competizione supports different weather conditions as well as dynamic weather, has a day and night cycle, has quite good multiplayer and supports driver swaps. There are already groups using Assetto Corsa Competizione for endurance races. Assetto Corsa Competizione's community is moderately big, but growing steadily. Not by far as big as Assetto Corsa's, but let's see what the future brings. The pricing is okay-ish. The basic price is €40, but you very often find Assetto Corsa Competizione for prices between €20 and €25, and while the first DLC with 4 tracks did cost €15, the second, which we personally consider more worthy of the price, did cost €20. There is no season's pass for it, and it's up to you to decide if those prices are okay or not. There is a console version for PS4 and Xbox One, but the video output is limited to 30 FPS, and there have been repeated reports of a lag between wheel input and the reaction of the game. Many buyers of Assetto Corsa Competizione for console were underwhelmed by it. Creating a server for Assetto Corsa Competizione is quite easy, as is administering it. Programmed by Brazilian company Razer, it's the for now last installment in a long row of sims produced by them. As the name implies, there is a sim called Automobilista, which was lauded for its physics and its AI. Automobilista 2 is a complete different beast, running on a completely different game engine, the same that Project Cars 2 used. But it has most of the content Automobilista had, which is good, as one very special characteristic of Automobilista was the inclusion of many tracks and series from Latin America and in part from Asia. The physics in Automobilista 2 are quite good, and if you are lucky, the force feedback on your wheel is going to be good too. There's enough reports of bad force feedback to be sure that only a part of the people who bought Automobilista 2 enjoy its force feedback out of the box. The graphics are okay, but not as detailed as the ones of Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Competizione, going for a smoother, more gamey style than those two. The virtual reality support is excellent and works like a charm. Sadly, there are no mods for Automobilista 2, and while Project Cars 2 had some mods here and there, they were not specially good. This may be the reason why the modding community has stayed away from this sim. Of course, the fact that support for mods from Razer is non-existent plays a role here. Automobilista 2 is actively being developed, and Razer has a history on fiddling with their sims for a long time to get everything right. The sim just left the early access phase and is still quite rough around the edges. Nevertheless, things are progressing in Automobilista 2 land, and Razer is often publishing new cars for free. It supports different and dynamic weather conditions, has a day and night cycle, and supports multiplayer. But the netcode is not very stable and has a long way to go. This fact and the non-existent mods may be the reason why the community of Automobilista 2 racers is very limited. The pricing is quite okay. The base game costs around €40, there's a season pass valid for around 2 years that adds a hefty €40 USD to the bill, and the 2 DLCs already available for it cost €10 each, which we consider a fair price for them. Each brings one different track with different historic versions and some configurations. Razer just published some packs offering a different way to buy some content of the DLCs. Automobilista 2 supports very diverse types of vehicles, including truck racing, karts, open-wheelers, touring cars and prototypes. Quite the choice. While it has a 24-hour cycle and, as we said, dynamic weather, the possibility of driver swaps is nowhere to be seen, sadly. Therefore, we cannot really say it's ready for endurance races. If anyone knows of a way to do driver swaps, let us know in the comments. There is no console version and none planned for now. And setting up a server is for now quite difficult. We neither own nor have we ever driven iRacing, so what you will hear has been gathered from different sources, discussions and talks with different people. For once, we are not talking from experience here. Take everything we say regarding iRacing with a pinch of salt. And please do correct us with anything we may have misunderstood or gotten wrong. The iRacing physics are okay and in some of the tracks and cars quite good, as the iRacing developers work on having as fine details as modern hard and software allows them to use. How that translates to the force feedback seems to be quite hit and miss. We've heard as many people cursing it as we've heard people loving it. Reminds us of the situation in Automobilista 2. The graphics are not as realistic as Assetto Corsas or Assetto Corsa Competizione and are, with regards to the style, somewhere in between Automobilista 2 and Assetto Corsa. Personally, I find them a little bit lacking if I compare them to Assetto Corsa Competizione, but they are good enough. iRacing does have virtual reality support, but absolutely no mod support whatsoever. It's being continuously developed, including new cars and tracks, and does have different weather conditions as well as a day-night cycle. Driver swaps are supported, so you have the whole package for endurance races. Multiplayer is the strongest selling point for iRacing, as it's oriented to having sim pilots race against each other, rating their performance and how safe they drive. Also, you can have your own series as well as taking part in the myriad of official racing series organized by iRacing in many different tracks, series and cars. And let's not forget, they have what is commonly known as the Week 13, where they organize fun and even silly races that have no bearing whatsoever on your rating and are there to decompress for 1 week from the pressure of regular racing and rating. You can imagine that the community is quite active, as iRacing is very community oriented. You can drive all sorts of tracks and cars in iRacing, and as it's a US-American company, you'll find many oval tracks, tarmac and dirt, with a corresponding cars and series, including rallycross. It may be the sim supporting the most diverse series out of the box. That said, the pricing schema is one that will have you questioning your sanity, and especially the one of your bank account, as you pay a monthly fee, and added to that, while you have a starter set of free cars and tracks, you will have to pay for each and every car and track you want to be racing. Due to this, iRacing is one of the most expensive sims around, if not the most expensive. There is no console version and no way to set up your own server, but you can organize series and races on one of the many iRacing servers. I've never made a secret of my love for this sim, but you're not here to hear about it. If you want to hear about that, head over to the video linked up there, but to hear what it can and cannot do. The physics are quite good, but not on par with Assetto Corsa Competizione or rFactor 2. The force feedback, while very good, can only be as good as the physics. Both are okay, leaning on good and on par with the physics of, say, Assetto Corsa. The graphics are okay, but getting dated month by month. The virtual reality support is quite good, although the updates this year have introduced some difficulties in the handling of virtual reality, at least on my system. Still, you can do everything in the menus on virtual reality, and the graphics performance doesn't suffer much if if you use virtual reality. Not as easy to handle as Automobilista 2, but almost. Better in the handling than Assetto Corsa and easier on the GPU than Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Competizione for sure. Sadly, it doesn't support mods at all. You'll have to stick with what Sector 3 delivers, Sector 3 being the studio developing Raceroom racing experience. That said, it's being actively developed, which updates that range from physics updates and corrections to new tracks, cars and series they regularly put out there. There is no diverse weather and of course no dynamic weather and no day-night cycle. Although these are all changes, Sector 3 has gone on record as looking to introduce in the sim in a not nearly defined future. Racing against others is easy in Raceroom racing experience. You can set up your own servers and Sector 3 organizes many races and special events. Some, including us, suspect they are working their way into something similar to what iRacing does, but they are moving carefully, finding out what works and what doesn't within their customer base. We have gotten the feeling over the years that the community of Raceroom racing experience is middle-sized and in some parts quite active. The VGA, for example, has a race on Raceroom racing experience every week. And you can race in a lot of series in this sim as long as the races are on tarmac. There's a lot of tracks from all over the world as well as series and cars, and they may be starting to work on delivering racing on ovals, but we'll have to see what the future brings. The pricing though is almost as bad as iRacing, although there's no monthly fee to pay. But you have to pay for every car, livery and track, or you buy a package like for example all WTCR cars from 2019 and even all cars and tracks used in Series X. You'll end up paying a lot of money over the years if you, as I, try to have everything. It's the only gripe we have about Raceroom racing experience, which overall is quite a fine sim. While a little bit dated, rFactor 2 still has a lot of fans and is still in good use. The physics are top-notch, even though their translation into force feedback is sometimes lacking. Its physics always get high praise, as up to this day it's one of the most thorough physics engine any sim has to offer. Maybe Assetto Corsa Competizione has gone further, but we cannot think of any other that surpasses it. The graphics are dated and something between Automobilista 2 and Raceroom racing experience, but being updated bit by bit. And the virtual reality support is quite good, allowing you to do everything inside of the VR. There is still a long way to go when it comes to graphics, but Studio 397, the developers of it, are working steadily on them. Not only does rFactor 2 support mods, you can install most of them through the Steam Workshop, saving yourself any kind of hassle. There's lots and lots of mods out there and in the Steam Workshop for rFactor 2. We don't think you'll get bored easily. The sim is being updated and tweaked with Studio 397 regularly publishing new cars and tracks, some paid, some for free, and bringing the game engine to modern times. Sadly, the UI is lacking and rFactor can be slow in reacting to what you do in the menus, but not when racing. This was one of the first sims that allowed you to do endurance races, has different and dynamic weather conditions, day-night cycle, and a system for driver swaps. It has been used for many years in international endurance sim racing series with all types of cars. We get the feeling that outside some very interested pockets, the community is dwindling. Special events like the 24 Hours of Le Mans raised the interest for a short while, but that doesn't seem to have stopped the trend. There's no console version for it, and we've been told setting up an rFactor 2 server is quote-unquote hell. These were most of the general purpose sims, notwithstanding Assetto Corsa Competizione's concentration on GT cars. We're now going to give you some information about quite specific sims, starting with excellent physics and a good force feedback, Kartkraft is a work of love where you drive karts, and only karts, around some excellent tracks. It supports virtual reality and it's still being developed, though at a very slow pace. While it doesn't support mods fully, there is one community-built track in the sim, and the developers have gone on record saying they want to open up Kartkraft for mods and are changing the code accordingly. It doesn't have changing weather conditions or a 24-hour cycle. I mean, how many kart endurance series do you know of? and multiplayer is still being developed, so it's a hit-and-miss working project. No console version and no multiplayer server exist, although the latter may come at some point. Even if not, for €25 on Steam you will have fun, especially if you use virtual reality. Don't think Dirt Simcades, think rather Richard Burns Rally. Dirt Rally 2 is a rally simulation supporting the use of virtual reality, but not as well as Assetto Corsa Competizione or Raceroom Racing Experience do, with acceptable physics and force feedback and graphics that were already dated when it came out in 2019. There neither is a mod support nor will there ever be, and while in theory it's not being developed anymore, it seems that the player basis is big enough for Dirt Rally 2 to get some appreciation from codemasters, as they are using it for some contests. Or they're doing it because they bought the WRC license back, who knows, marketing is strong in the codemasters. It has different weather conditions, and while it doesn't have a 24-hour cycle, it does have night stages. The pricing schema out of the box is nightmarish, with many different DLCs, but you can buy the game with most of the DLCs packaged together, for example in the Game of the Year version at a sale, relieving you of most of the hassle with the DLCs. Mind you, that still will leave a couple of DLCs out, but it's better than buying the game and the DLCs one by one. You can kinda play in multiplayer, each of you doing the legs needed one after the other, and you can even set up a server for it. We've been told it's easy, though we've never tried. Another one that we don't own and haven't tested, WRC 8 has been out a year and WRC 9 came out shortly. Both are official FIA WRC sims, but sadly will be the last by this team, as codemasters have bought the license back, as we just said. That doesn't mean the studio will never produce a rally game ever again, but that anything they produce after WRC 9 will not be an official sim supported by the FIA. The physics are very good, we're told, as is the force feedback. The graphics are quite good, but WRC 8 and 9 don't support VR, and neither do they support mods. WRC 8 has reached end of life, while WRC 9 hasn't. Of course, you can set up weather for the stages, and it even changes within a stage, but with stages not lasting much longer than 10 minutes, there is no need for day and night cycles. WRC 8 had some basic multiplayer, while WRC 9's better, and it even has a co-op mode where one of you can be the co-pilot. I'm sure that mode will lead to many broken friendships and lots of grief. Pricing's mostly one-time pay for the game or some version of it, and then some DLCs which you can or cannot buy, but nothing over the top. That would be about all. There's also BeamNG, and this is a special case, as it was never meant directly as a racing sim, although, because of its physics, it gets used as one by a selected community. Please let us know in the comments any errors we may have committed or information we may have omitted. Remember, we have tons of videos sharing the joy of sim racing, so check the playlist to the left or the video to the right. Until next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other at the podium.
Visit romrom.net to connect to fellow sim racers and sim racing fans.